What role did missionaries play in Spanish colonization? Imagine you're traveling back in time to the 16th century, a period when European powers were expanding their territories across the Americas. One of the key groups that played a significant role in this expansion were missionaries. So, what exactly did these missionaries do during the Spanish colonization? Missionaries, primarily from the Franciscan order, were at the forefront of Spanish colonization. Their main goal was to spread Christianity, specifically Catholicism, to the Native American populations. When the Spanish first arrived in what is now the United States, they established a system of missions and presidios. Missions were managed by friars who aimed to convert Native Americans to Catholicism and integrate them into Spanish culture. These missionaries were not just about religion, they also served as an advance guard for the Spanish. They helped establish control over the land and its people. For instance, in Texas, the first Spanish missions were set up in the 1680s near present-day San Angelo, El Paso, and Presidio. These missions were strategically located to counter French settlements and to convert the local Caddo Indians. In Florida, the mission system was a bit different. Here, Franciscan friars replaced Jesuit priests who had earlier failed to convert the Native Americans. These missions were funded by the Spanish government and were set up in the villages of local chiefdoms. The friars would serve a larger group of Indians through visitation rounds, teaching them Catholic doctrine and administering sacraments like baptism and communion. The missionaries also played a role in the economic and political integration of Native Americans into the Spanish colonial system. For example, in Florida, the mission system included a labor system called the repartimiento, where Native Americans were required to work in Spanish cornfields or build fortifications. This system had significant impacts on the native societies, including the spread of diseases and changes in their social structures. In summary, missionaries were crucial in spreading Catholicism, establishing Spanish control, and integrating Native Americans into the Spanish colonial system. Their work was multifaceted, involving religious conversion, economic labor, and political integration, all of which were central to the Spanish colonization efforts. What role did missionaries play in Spanish colonization? Picture a vast, untouched land teeming with diverse Native American tribes. This was the scene when Spanish missionaries arrived in the Americas. But what did these missionaries do, and how did they influence the course of history? Missionaries were key players in the Spanish colonization of the Americas. Their primary mission was to convert Native Americans to Catholicism. In places like Texas and Florida, they established missions that served as centers for religious and cultural conversion. These missions were often located in areas with significant Native American populations, such as the Caddo Indians in East Texas. The Franciscan friars were particularly active in this endeavor. They provided Spain with an advance guard, helping to establish and maintain control over the newly acquired territories. For instance, when Juan de Oñate led settlers into New Mexico in 1598, missionaries were part of the group, aiming to convert the Pueblo Indians to Catholicism. The mission system was not just about religion. It was also a tool for political and economic control. Missions were set up in the heart of Native American chiefdoms, and friars would visit outlying villages to teach Christian doctrine and perform sacraments. This integration into the mission system often required Native Americans to work in Spanish fields or build fortifications, a system known as the repartimiento. Additionally, the missionaries' efforts to convert Native Americans led to significant cultural changes. For example, the imposition of monogamy on polygamous cultures disrupted established marriage and hereditary lines. These changes were part of the broader strategy to assimilate Native Americans into Spanish society. In essence, missionaries played a vital role in spreading Catholicism, establishing Spanish control, and integrating Native Americans into the colonial system. Their work had profound impacts on the social, economic, and cultural fabric of the regions they operated in. What role did missionaries play in Spanish colonization? Imagine walking through a bustling Spanish mission in the 17th century. You see friars teaching Native Americans about Christianity, and you wonder, what was the purpose of these missions? Missionaries were at the heart of Spanish colonization, particularly in the Americas. Their main objective was to convert Native Americans to Catholicism. This was not just a religious endeavor but also a strategic move to secure Spanish control over the land and its people. In Texas, for example, missions were established in the 1680s to counter French influence and to convert the local Caddo Indians. In Florida, the mission system was well organized. Franciscan friars took over from the Jesuits and established missions in the villages of local chiefdoms. These missions included a church and a convent, and the friars would visit surrounding villages to teach Christian doctrine and perform sacraments. This system helped integrate Native Americans into the Spanish colonial structure. The economic aspect was also significant. Native Americans were required to work in Spanish fields or build fortifications under the repartimiento system. This labor system had profound effects on Native American societies, including the spread of diseases and changes in their social structures. Missionaries also imposed significant cultural changes. For instance, they introduced monogamy to polygamous cultures, which disrupted traditional marriage and hereditary lines. These changes were part of the broader effort to assimilate Native Americans into Spanish culture. In summary, missionaries were instrumental in spreading Catholicism, establishing Spanish control, and integrating Native Americans into the colonial system. Their work had lasting impacts on the regions they operated in, shaping the social, economic, and cultural landscape of the Americas.